Close your eyes for a second. Think back to a summer afternoon when you were 8 years old. Can you feel it? That thick, endless stretch of time. You could build a fort, wage war with the neighbor kids, declare a truce, catch frogs by the creek, race home, and somehow it was still only 2 p.m. The day felt infinite. Now think about last week. What did you do? Where did it go? If you're like most people, you can barely remember. The days blurred together. Monday became Friday in what felt like a single breath. And here's what really gets me. Here's what should terrify you. It's getting faster. Every year that passes feels shorter than the one before. You blink and you're 30. Blink again, 50. The decades are slipping through your fingers like sand. And no matter how hard you squeeze, you can't hold on. So what the hell is happening? Is this just in your head, some trick of memory? Or is there something deeper going on? Something written into the fabric of reality itself? I'm a physicist. And when I look at this problem through the lens of atoms, energy, and information, I find something disturbing. Your perception of time is controlled by the most depressing law in the universe. But here's the twist, the part nobody tells you. The reason time speeds up isn't because you're falling apart. It's because you're getting too good at life. Stay with me. Because what I'm about to show you will change how you see every single day you have left. We grow up believing time is this steady, reliable thing. A river flowing at the same speed for everyone, everywhere. Tick-tock, tick-tock. 1 second for the child, 1 second for the dying man. But nature doesn't work like that. Nature is far more absurd. Einstein taught us over a century ago that time bends. It stretches and compresses depending on how fast you're moving, how deep you are in a gravitational field. But forget rockets and black holes for a moment. We're not talking about relativity today. We're talking about something much closer to home. We're talking about psychological time. And when you look at it through the lens of information theory, you start to see patterns that rhyme with thermodynamics. Not the same, but eerily parallel. But before we dive into why time flies, we need to ask a more fundamental question. How do we even know time is passing at all? Imagine this. You're in a room, perfectly, no clock, no windows, and you're frozen, completely still. The air doesn't move, the light doesn't flicker, nothing changes. Does time pass, you might say? Of course it does. But how would you know? If state A is identical to state B, if nothing distinguishes one moment from the next, then there's no measurement, no distinction. In physics, the arrow of time, the direction from past to future, is tied to change, to entropy increasing, to the rearrangement of matter from order to disorder. That's one view, not the only one, but it's the one that matters here. Picture a tank of perfectly still water. The atoms are jiggling, they always are. But on the surface, nothing happens. Boring, no story to tell. Now drop a single drop of ink into that water. Watch what happens. The ink explodes into these gorgeous swirling clouds. It spreads, it dances. It transforms the water from ink here, water there, into something new. A chaotic, beautiful mixture. That process, moving from order to disorder, creates history. It creates an arrow of time. And your brain is the machine that watches the ink swirl and decides what's worth remembering. But here's where it gets interesting. Think of your memory as a movie camera. But not a normal camera, an intelligent one, one that adjusts its frame rate based on what it's filming. When you're 5 years old, everything is new. The way dust motes float in a beam of sunlight, you've never seen that before. The way a dog's ears flap when it runs. The sharp, almost violent sweetness of a strawberry hitting your tongue for the first time. Your brain sees this flood of chaotic, unpredictable data and says, "Holy hell, this is important. I need to capture all of this." So the camera cranks up. It starts filming at 120 frames per second. Every texture, every smell, every flicker of light and shadow. It's writing down a massive amount of information. The information content is high, unpredictable, rich. In the language of information theory, this is high Shannon entropy. Lots of surprise. Lots of bits needed to describe what you're seeing. But now fast forward, you're 40. You wake up, brush your teeth, same toothbrush, same technique you've used 10,000 times. Drive to work, same route you've driven 3,000 times. Sit at your desk. You know what your boss is going to say before he opens his mouth. Your brain looks at this input and says, "I know this. I've got this pattern on file. No need to waste energy recording it again." So what does the camera do? It slows down. It drops to 2 frames per second. Snapshot brushing teeth. Snapshot arriving at work. Snapshot dinner. It cuts out everything in between. It compresses the data like a zip file. And here's the kicker. Here's where the illusion happens. When you play the movie back in your head, You play it at a constant speed. The childhood movie was shot at 120 frames per second, so when you replay it, it unfolds in slow motion. It's rich, detailed. A single afternoon stretches because there's so much information packed into it. The adulthood movie was shot at 2 frames per second. When you replay that, it looks like one of those old silent films where everyone's jerking around frantically. Zip, zip, zip. An entire week goes by in a blur. You drove to work, came home, slept, 3 frames. That's it. The physics of information tells us this. The perception of duration is proportional to the amount of new information recorded. But we need to go deeper. Because saying the camera slows down is a bit of a cheat, isn't it? We need to understand why the brain does this and what it has to do with the fundamental nature of the universe. We need to talk about atoms. Everything, you, me, the air, the screen you're staring at is made of atoms. And these atoms are always doing the same thing. They're jiggling, bouncing, colliding, never still. In physics, we often use a simple model. A box of gas, billions of molecules smashing into each other. If you start them all in one corner, that's order. That's a special, rare state. But very quickly, they bounce and spread until they fill the entire box. That's disorder. High entropy. And here's the thing about nature. Disorder is overwhelmingly more probable than order. There are billions of ways for molecules to be mixed up, and only a few ways for them to be neatly separated. So they naturally drift toward the probable state. Not because nature wants it, because math demands it. It's incredibly easy to scramble an egg. It's impossible to unscramble it. Now, your brain is a physical system fighting against this tide. It's trying to make sense of chaos, trying to find order in the noise. When you're young, your internal model of the world is incomplete, so incoming data appears unpredictable, high in information content. It's not that the world is more disordered. It's that you haven't learned the patterns yet. Your brain has to work furiously to map it all out. It's building neural pathways from scratch, physically rewiring itself to accommodate this strange new reality. This burns energy like crazy, and that high-intensity processing, it carves deep grooves in your memory. It makes time stick. But as you age, you build a model of the world. You create order inside your head. You create predictions. Let me give you an analogy. Imagine you're 5 years old, learning to read. You stare at a sentence. You have to process every single letter. C-A-T, cat, R-U-N-S, runs. You're parsing raw data bit by bit. It takes forever to get through a page. The experience is dense. Now imagine you're an adult reading that same page. You don't look at the letters. You barely even look at the words. You scan. Your brain sees the shape of the paragraph and predicts the meaning. You're not reading anymore. You're pattern matching. This is data compression, and it's killing your sense of time. In information theory, Shannon's version, if a message is predictable, it contains very little information. If I send you A, and you already know I'm sending A's, I haven't told you anything new. The surprise is zero. The information content is nearly zero. This is different from thermodynamic entropy, but the math looks strangely similar. As you get older, your life becomes a string of predictable A's. Your brain writes ditto, same as yesterday. It stops recording the jiggle of atoms because the jiggle looks identical to the one from yesterday, and because you're not recording the details. When you look back, there's nothing there. The timeline collapses. Now here's where it gets weird, paradoxical even. In physics, we sometimes think of space-time not as a flowing river, but as a block, a solid four-dimensional object, past, present, and future all existing simultaneously. Think of it like a sausage, a long, infinite sausage. If you slice that sausage, each slice represents a moment in time. Now, look at the sausage of a young person's life. The ingredients are wild. One slice has a chunk of black pepper. The next has garlic. The next has a swirl of herbs. Every slice is distinct. When you look at the stack, you can easily tell them apart. This is the slice where I fell off my bike. This is the slice where I tasted ice cream for the first time. But now look at the sausage of a routine adult life. It's processed meat, uniform, smooth. Every slice looks exactly like the one before it. If I show you slice 4000 and slice 45, you can't tell the difference. They're identical. And here's the thing. In the logic of memory, if two states look indistinguishable to you, your brain treats them as the same. It merges them. Physics doesn't care. Those moments still happen. But you don't remember them as separate. It takes 5 years of the same commute, the same breakfast, the same TV shows, and squashes them into one thin slice labeled work. You didn't lose the time. You lived it. You just didn't record it. And if it's not recorded, did it even happen? You didn't give the atoms a chance to jiggle in a way worth saving. This brings us to something deeply paradoxical about the arrow of time. We usually say time moves forward because entropy increases. Things get messier. The universe trends toward disorder, but inside your head as you age, the information content of your new memories decreases. You're not encoding disorder, you're encoding patterns. Predictability and predictable signals compress. This isn't thermodynamic entropy in the strict sense. It's closer to information theoretic entropy, but the parallel is haunting. And while order feels safe, while it feels comfortable, order is the thief of time. Think about that. We spend our entire lives trying to get our act together, stabilize our careers, build routines, reduce chaos. We do this because chaos is stressful, unpredictable, exhausting. But by reducing the chaos, by smoothing out the bumps, we're hitting the fast forward button on our own lives. We're making reality so slippery that it slides past us without any friction. Friction, that's the word. And you've spent your whole life trying to eliminate it. When you're young, life has friction. You don't know what you're doing. You bump into things. You make mistakes. You feel embarrassed, excited, confused, alive. That friction generates heat. It generates data. It stretches time. When you're older and comfortable, you're frictionless. You glide through the day on autopilot. And because you glide, you don't feel the movement. Einstein's relativity tells us, if you move fast through space, time for you ticks slower relative to someone standing still. You don't feel it. But when you stop, less time has passed for you than for them. There's a kind of psychological relativity here, not a law but a pattern. If you move mentally fast through your day, on autopilot with zero resistance, your memory of your life compresses. You experience it quickly in retrospect. I'll be honest with you, this scares me. When I think about how quickly the last decade disappeared, it genuinely frightens me. But here's the thing, and this is where hope enters the picture. Understanding the mechanism means we can tamper with it. We can hack the system. If the brain measures time by change of state, and if the brain compresses predictable data, then the solution is obvious. It's not about living longer. It's about increasing the unpredictability of your experiences. Forcing your brain to record more frames, more detail, more bits. You have to inject chaos back into the system. You have to force your atoms to jiggle in new patterns. Listen to me. If you drive the same route to work every day, your brain sleeps. So drive a different way. Yes, it's inefficient. Yes, it takes longer. Good. That's the point. You want it to take longer. You want to force your brain to wake up and notice the street signs again. If you eat the same food, brush your teeth with the same hand, talk to the same people about the same topics, you're already dead. You're a machine running a loop. To feel alive, to make a year feel like a year, you must be inefficient. You must be confused. You must learn something hard. When you learn a new language, or pick up an instrument, or even just walk through a neighborhood you've never been to before, you're resetting the frame rate. You're forcing the brain to say, wait, I don't know this pattern. I need to record this at 120 frames per second. And suddenly the afternoon stretches out. Suddenly you're back in that childhood summer day. It's uncomfortable, yes. Novelty is always uncomfortable because it requires energy. It increases the metabolic heat in your brain. But that heat is the feeling of life. The universe is heading toward heat death, maximum entropy, a state where all energy gradients flatten out, where there's no fuel left to drive change. Particles still jiggle, but there's no structure left, no evolution, no memory. That's the fate of the cosmos. But you don't have to let that be the fate of your mind before your body quits. You have a choice. You can let the entropy of your life settle into a dull, gray uniformity, where the years vanish in a blink, or you can stir the pot, you can add energy, create new arrangements, new patterns, new slices of the sausage that are distinct and flavorful. The secret to a long life, one that feels long, isn't how many breaths you take. It's in the number of times you take your breath away with something new. It's about refusing to let the atoms settle. So here's my challenge to you. Don't let tomorrow be a copy of today. Don't let your brain compress your life into a single forgettable frame. Go out there and make some noise, jiggle the atoms, confuse your own circuitry, because if you don't, you'll blink and the show will be over. This world is a fantastic, crazy, impossibly complicated place. It's filled with layers upon layers of mystery, and the biggest tragedy of all is walking through it with your eyes closed, thinking you've seen it all before. You haven't. You really, really haven't. If you want to keep exploring these mysteries, if you want to keep peeling back the layers to see what's underneath, hit that subscribe button. Let's keep asking why. Let's keep finding things out. See you next time.